I would like to dedicate these few homiletic moments to mothers, the mothers of our parish and the mothers who belong to every one of us. Some years ago, this young mother came to see me in the rectory, the old rectory, and she had a very serious issue to discuss, something that really troubled her. And when she came to see me, she had two little children with her, a baby about 6 months old, and then a lively little chap who was about 2 or 3 years old. And as she was speaking about this very serious issue, this little fellow was rearranging the furniture in my office. He was pulling a chair, and after a while he moved the coffee table, and she admiringly looked at him, thought this was a sign of leadership or enterprise, imagination. This is going to be a real leader, this fellow. And all that was fine until he took hold of my Yadru, Blessed Mother. And when that happened, I said, wait a minute, maybe we should slow this little fellow down. But it did strike me that mothers have to be able to multitask. All mothers must multitask. You must learn to drive an SUV safely, and you must be on time in the carpool. You have to put up with children who are grumpy or children who are happy, disappointed, or successful. That's the multitask. The mother has to know a little bit about Little League, the difference between a fastball and a curveball. She also must know something about ballet or music or some culture that might appeal to another child. It will help if she knows something about math or algebra or science. But she must be connected to technology. So she must know something about computers and all the world of technology and iPhones and all that, because that's the world of the child. So the mother must multitask. And this is very good. There's one small temptation or one small danger in it, and that is that the mother becomes a functionary. She becomes a person who fixes things, arranges things, gets things done. And there is a danger that as a person, she somehow is eclipsed. Her feelings. Mothers have feelings. They have feelings of being neglected, feelings of abandonment, feelings of fear. And when you tell somebody how you feel, you're telling the person who you are. I can tell you, I like this or I like that. You know nothing about me. I tell you, I feel lonely. I feel successful. I am telling you who I am. Mothers have to find venues to speak who they are. It might be their pride, their success. It might be their sense of failure because their children don't go to church anymore. And they spent all that money, 12 years of Catholic school, and now they're Mormons or whatever. There is a danger that mothers have this sense of missing some accomplishment or expectations unfulfilled. And in the middle of all of this, you have the single mother, the married mother in ecstasy in the marriage, or you, somebody over there's not in ecstasy, or else you have a mother in a family that somehow goes through its trials and tribulations and difficult times. And all this is very important when we begin to honor mothers. We have to somehow connect with the person, not with the function, but with a real person. The sadness, the struggles, the dreams, the hopes, the feelings, the love, present or absent. These all somehow speak to us about the person of the mother. Now, recently, somebody emailed me a story that speaks about this just slightly. The author is unknown, and here's the way the story read to me online. Recently, this author says, I overheard a mother and a daughter in their last moments together at the airport as the daughter's departure had been announced. Standing near the security gate, they hugged, and the mother said, I love you, and I wish you enough. But the daughter replied, Mom, our life together has been more than enough. Your love is all I ever needed. I wish you enough too, Mom. They kissed, and the daughter left. And the mother walked over to the window where I sat. Standing there, I could see she wanted and needed to cry. I tried not to intrude on her privacy, but she welcomed me by asking, Did you ever say goodbye to someone knowing it would last forever? Yes, I have, I replied. Forgive me for asking, but why is it a forever goodbye? Well, I am old, and she lives far away. I have challenges ahead, and the reality is the next trip home will be for my funeral, she said. When you were saying goodbye, I heard you say, I wish you enough. May I ask you what that means? She began to smile. That's a wish that has been handed down from other generations. My parents used to say it to everyone. When we said, I wish you enough, we were wishing the person to have a life filled with just enough good things to sustain them. And then turning toward me, she shared the following from her memory. I wish you enough sun to keep your attitude bright. I wish you enough rain to appreciate the sun more. I wish you enough happiness to keep your spirit alive. I wish you enough pain so that the smallest joys in life appear much bigger. I wish you enough gain to satisfy your wanting. I wish you enough loss to appreciate all that you possess. I wish you enough hellos to get you through the final goodbye. And then she began to cry, and she walked away. The feeling, the person. Now let me tell you a little bit about my own mother. I talk a lot about my father. My mother died 32 years ago. She predeceased my father by 10 years. And somehow, those 10 years, when my father got older and more fragile, I got to see him in a new way and love him and be inspired even more than when he was young and he was my icon. Yet my mother had an enormous quiet influence on my life. She was a nurse, and with boundless generosity, nursed poor people. She was a midwife, delivered babies at home for poor people. I remember when I was a child, poor families coming to our home when somebody died in the family, and the wake would be at home in the person's house. And they would come to ask my mother to come and wash the body of the dead person. Only a nurse could see the naked body. She would go and wash the body and prepare the person for the wake and for the burial. I saw all this boundless charity and caring. But there is one story that comes to mind today on Mother's Day. And this happened when I was about 19 years old. I wasn't too old to learn, and she wasn't too old to teach me. Our family lived in London, and I drove around in one of those mini cars. We think they're new. You know the mini cars? I had one of those 50 years ago. I used to drive around in a mini Austin, and it was a stick shift, and it was fun, easy to park, and I zipped around London in the traffic, and it was wonderful, adventurous, fun for a young person. In those days, seat belts were not obliged by law. So one day, I was out driving with my mother and cruising along very peacefully. You will not believe what happened. Some hooligan cut me off. I knew this was not God's will. I just knew that. So I threw the car into second, and I went around, and I zipped on, and I got ahead of him. My mother was furious, not because I endangered her life, which I did. And she said this to me: "You were wrong. You should not have done that." And I said, "No, he was wrong first. I mean, he cut me off first." No, you're wrong. I said, "No, he's wrong." Then she said, "You brought out the worst in him. You could have brought out the best in him, but you didn't. You brought out the worst in him. Anytime you bring out the worst in another person, you're wrong. It doesn't matter how right you think you are. We all know very well how to bring out the worst in the other person." And I learned that the only way in which you can bring out the worst in the other person is through the worst in yourself. And the only way in which you can bring out the best in another person is from the best in yourself. So in remembering mothers and celebrating mothers and in gratitude to mothers, let this be a day when the best in us will bring out the best in others. Amen. It's wonderful. Life is